You're listening to Coupled With, the podcast that helps you take the guesswork out of feeling seen, heard, and valued in your relationship. If you've ever felt stuck in the same arguments, struggled to stay connected, or wondered how to better communicate with your partner, you're in the right place. I'm Dr. Rachel Orlick, a couples therapist and coach, and together, we're going to make relationships make sense. Let's dive in. We already talked about this. I already know this. I've journaled, therapied, podcasted, and reflected my way into awareness. So why the hell am I still spinning out of every argument like someone left me out in the emotional rain without an umbrella? This is the part no one talks about when they tell you to do the work. That moment after the conflict ends, when you've calmed down, just enough to hate how you showed up. Your inner critic becomes a full-blown motivational speaker, yelling that you should know better, that you're the problem, that you're the one breaking this relationship. And the worst part, you believe it. Because when you've done some healing, it feels like you should be past this, but you're not. Not in that moment. My clients tell me all the time, I don't understand. I teach this stuff. I help other people through it. Why can't I do it myself? And look, I've said the same thing. The truth is, being insightful doesn't mean you're regulated. Self-awareness can't override a dysregulated nervous system. Knowing what's happening doesn't mean your body feels safe. And that post-conflict shame loop, it's not proof that you're failing. It's just proof that your system is on high alert. And blaming yourself feels safer than sitting in the vulnerability of disconnection. In this episode, we're going to pull apart what's really happening in the aftermath of a conflict. Not between you and your partner, but inside your own dang head. The shame, the mental spiral, the relentless you should know better loop. Because you're not crazy and you're not broken, you're just in a body that is trying to protect you, even if it's using a strategy that hurts. It's something small, a sigh, a missed bid, a misunderstood tone, and you reacted, snapped, withdrew, over-explained, or the exact thing you promised yourself that you would never say again. And now, hours later, the argument is technically over, but you're still spinning. The words replay in your head like a shitty highlight reel you didn't ask to star in. And somewhere between remembering what happened and redeciding what you should have done, you start to crumble. You rehearse a different version, one where you stayed calm, where you remembered your script, where you didn't cry or shut down or lash out. You fantasize about being the partner who has their shit together, and the farther you get from that moment, the more unbearable it feels that you weren't. That's when the shame kicks in. You go from, ugh, I messed up, to why do I always do this? Maybe I'm just too much, and maybe I'm the problem. This is the invisible part of the conflict loop. The part no one sees. Not your partner, not your friends, sometimes not even your therapist, because you're too ashamed to admit it. You start to believe that your ability to recognize the pattern should be enough to stop it. But it wasn't. And now you're stuck in a loop. Blame yourself, replay everything, lose sleep, over-apologize, and promise to do better again. Clients tell me this is the part that feels the worst, even worse than the argument itself. Because at least during the argument, you were defending something. Now, you're just sitting in an emotional hangover. You're beating yourself up with every insight you've ever gained, trying to use emotional awareness as a punishment tool. Like, if I shame myself hard enough, maybe I'll finally change. And listen, if this is you, you're not alone. This is one of the most painful places to live, especially for people who are self aware, because insight without integration doesn't soothe, it stings. And no one tells you that the more insight you gain, the sharper that sting can become. Not because you're failing, but because you haven't learned how to bring your body with you. The real problem isn't that you don't know better. It's that knowing better isn't enough when your nervous system still thinks that it's under attack. We've been sold this myth that insights equal change. And if you can name the pattern, you'll stop doing it. That if you've healed enough, you'll never get reactive again. That's not how this works. That's not how you work. Your emotions aren't broken. You're just in a body that remembers. And when your body remembers something painful, an old wound, a moment of rejection, a flash of abandonment, it's going to move faster than your insight. It's going to launch you into protection mode before your logic has a chance to even weigh in. It's not sabotage, it's survival. And shame just pours gasoline on that. Here's the hard truth no one wants to admit. The more insight you gain, the more your nervous system throws a tantrum when you still screw up. Because now the collapse has a spotlight on it. You see yourself, you're aware of the pattern, and that awareness can feel like both a gift and a curse. Because it doesn't mean you're done. It just means you're awake for the hard parts now. Knowing the cycle doesn't mean you've rewired the impulse. It means you've built a map, but your nervous system has to learn the route. And beating yourself up for not getting it right is like yelling at a smoke alarm. It's loud, pointless, and exhausting. So, what if this isn't proof of failure, but evidence that your body is still working out how to feel safe in this new pattern? What if the shame isn't a sign that you're regressing, but a sign that something important was at stake? You don't need more self-blame. You need a different lens, one that honors what you know without expecting it to undo what you've actually lived. Your nervous system isn't trying to ruin your relationship, it's trying to keep you alive. And for a long time, maybe even decades, it's done that by reacting fast, scanning for threat, and launching protective strategies that worked once upon a time. These reactions are reflective. They're not insight, they're about safety. And they happen in the parts of your brain that don't give a damn how many books you've read or how many therapy sessions you've had. When a conflict happens, your body doesn't wait for your adult, regulated self to decide how to respond. It reaches into the past, pulls out whatever worked last time, and the time before that. Maybe that means shutting down to avoid escalation. Maybe it means fixing or fawning to preserve connection. Maybe it means going on the attack because somewhere deep inside, disconnection feels like danger and anger feels like power. Here's what most people miss. The aftershock is still part of the protective pattern. Even after the rupture is over, your nervous system stays activated. You're not reacting to your partner anymore. You're reacting to your own vulnerability, to the fact that you snapped or froze or cried or walked away. And now your body is trying to make sense of it all. That loop, that's just your system doing a post-game analysis, trying to figure out how to avoid this pain the next time. And unfortunately, one of the fastest ways the body tries to restore order is through self-blame. Because if you are the problem, you can do something about it. If it's your fault, you can work harder, be better, or even get it right the next time. Blame gives you the illusion of control, and for a nervous system that's swimming in shame and fear, control feels a hell of a lot safer than grief or uncertainty. So, no, This isn't a failure of insight, it's a survival strategy. It's your body trying to rewrite the past by controlling the future. But safety doesn't come from self punishment. Regulation doesn't come from replaying every word on loop. It comes from recognizing your nervous system isn't late to the party, it's still running the emergency drill. There are two paths that show up after conflict: the shame spiral and the self attunement loop. Most of us live in the first one. The fight ends, your body's still buzzing, and your brain immediately kicks into overdrive. What did I say? Did I overreact? Did I make it worse? What if I ruined everything? You replay the moment, every expression, every tone, every pause. You're the judge, jury, and executioner. And spoiler, you're always guilty. In the shame spiral, your worth becomes a verdict, and you start believing that if you just dissect it enough, you can fix it. That maybe if you hate yourself just a little more this time, you'll finally get it right next time. This is where you apologize, not to repair, but to relieve your own guilt. It's where you over explain, not to be understood, but to convince your partner you're not a monster. It feels like responsibility, but really it's self-flagellation in a lab coat. But then there's another path, the self-attunement loop. And this one starts not with fixing, but with noticing. It says, my body is still activated. That makes sense. That was hard. I don't have to sort it all out right now. Instead of obsessing over what went wrong, you get curious about what's still happening inside of you. Instead of chasing repair from fear, you reconnect with yourself from compassion. Not perfectly, not instantly, but intentionally. The internal storm is really loud. The self-attunement loop is quiet. It doesn't yell at you to do better. It whispers that you're still worthy, even while messy. It gives you this space to pause before the apology, before the story, before the overreaction. It invites you to settle before you solve. This is the path where regulation lives, where change is allowed to root and it's not forced through guilt, but nurtured through understanding. That second path might not feel familiar yet. It might feel awkward, slow, even indulgent. Your brain will argue that you're letting yourself off the hook, that if you don't analyze everything, you'll never grow. But real growth doesn't come from more punishment. It comes from presence, from giving your nervous system space to recover instead of yanking it back into the battlefield every time you get triggered. Both loops begin the same way, a rupture. But one leads to repair, and it's not the one where you shame yourself into silence. So what do you do when you catch yourself in it? When the fight is over, but your nervous system is still screaming and your brain has pulled out the highlighter, the megaphone, and the red pen. You don't need a script. You don't need a perfect comeback or an urgent apology. What you need is a moment of internal orientation, a pattern interrupt that brings your body back online before your brain starts rewriting history in all capital letters. Here's a simple practice I offer clients in this exact moment. It's not a fix, it's not a hack, it's a bridge. You name it, you normalize it, and you nurture it. This is not about performing calm. It's about creating enough safety to step off the shame train before it barrels into your self-worth. And it starts with 3 quiet sentences you say to yourself, not your partner, not your therapist, just you. Name what's happening. I'm spiraling. Not, I just messed up again. Not, I'm the problem. Just, this is a shame spiral. Labeling the state gives your system something solid to hold on to. It tells your brain, oh, this is the pattern. It's not a personal failure. You're not gaslighting yourself out of it. You're grounding in reality. Then normalize the response. Of course I'm spiraling. That was hard. This isn't weakness. This is your nervous system doing what it was wired to do. You're not the only one who collapses after conflict. You're not the only one who replays every word at 2 o'clock in the morning. This makes sense. You make sense. Then nurture your nervous system with a small act of care. This might be getting a drink of water, stepping outside, or wrapping yourself in a warm blanket. Maybe it's one deep breath with a hand on your chest. Something that says, I'm still here, I'm still safe, we're allowed to come down from this. You don't have to be regulated, but you do deserve support, even if it's just from you. This 3-step practice doesn't solve everything, but it shows the unraveling. It reminds your system that shame isn't your only option, and it gives you a fighting chance to show up differently next time. Not because you shamed yourself into it, but because you felt safe enough to stay present. You don't spiral because you're weak. You spiral because your body hasn't caught up to what your mind already knows. Insight is really powerful. It lights the way, but it doesn't change the reflexes. Not by itself. And expecting it to is like blaming a flashlight for not putting out a fire. You've done so much work already. You've read the books, listened to the podcasts, unpacked the childhood stories, built awareness around your triggers, and all of that matters. None of it makes you immune to being human. Having a moment to falling back into a familiar loop when your nervous system thinks connection is at risk. This doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're still rewiring. That's the work now. Not knowing more, but embodying it differently. So if your brain is yelling that you should know better, try whispering something back. I'm still learning. I'm allowed to pause here. I'm allowed to grow without punishment. That's the voice your nervous system is aching to hear. Not more critique, not more pressure, just a gentle signal that you're still worth showing up for, even when you spiral. If you're tired of trying to outthink your patterns, you're not alone. Whether you're in a pretty good relationship and want it to grow, or you're single and done repeating that same old pattern, or you're navigating a hard dynamic and wondering if it's even salvageable, this is your work. Not to perfect yourself, but to build enough internal safety that your body stops treating closeness like a threat. You don't have to do that alone. There are tools, frameworks, and relationship maps that make this easier to navigate. There's nothing wrong with you if those pieces aren't clicking yet. You might just need support that meets you where you actually are right now, in the moment after the moment, when shame is loud and old stories come rushing back. That's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of the shift. If you've been nodding along during this episode thinking, this is exactly what happens in my relationship, but I don't know how to stop it, I made something for you. It's a free 7-day email course called Break the Cycle. Each day, I'll walk you through simple steps to stop the same fight from repeating and start rebuilding real connection without shutting down, walking on eggshells, or trying to do it all perfectly. You can sign up at my website. I'll link it in the show notes. It's totally free. This isn't just about communication. It's about breaking patterns that are breaking you. That's it for today's episode of Coupled With. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe so you never miss what's next. And if you found it helpful, please share it with a friend or leave a quick rating and review. It really helps more than you know. And if you're curious about how we might work together or want more resources to strengthen your relationship, head over to my website, www.drrachelorlick.com. You'll find free tools, podcast extras, and ways to go deeper. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.